So this is Project 9, which is what do you perceive and why. So basically, after watching the crash course over psychology, it talked about like a bunny, like seeing a bunny / a rabbit, and then or a duck. And it's like a picture where how you see it is based on context, culture, and just how your mind just allows you to see it. Or like, yeah. So to the book. With the book, like, the book overall, My Name is Red, is very, it's a very tricky book. Like, the author himself is very, like, tricksterish, and, like, every chapter there's something, that you have to really think about and perceive. Not necessarily perceive, but you have to look for the deeper meaning in things, in the book. So, a chapter that I saw, like, how I perceived it, I would say, is the Orhan is innocent, or the Orhan, the child, who my name is Orhan. So it's when, he's a 6-year-old, he's a child, right? And his perspective seems, because he's a child, it seems like unreliable, but he's innocent. Not necessarily malicious and act shy and normal like a regular kid. That's how I perceived Orhan. But then when you look at the later chapters, like the last chapters, there's 2 lines that someone is speaking, and they talk about Orhan if he is very clever, and like that, how he tells his stories are like he tells his stories with like lies, and he exaggerates them for the sake of a good story. Like how he will draw out characters as more maybe more terrifying or more mean or more absent-minded, or like their lives harder than they are. Like that's what they made Orhan seem like. He was like they made him seem like he was a I guess a trickster. And then the question was like, and even there, were we talking about the author or like the child? So it was like how you perceived who they were talking about in that instance, and then applying that to either the author or the child in the earlier chapters. So that already is like perception. Who you think is what, how they act, like how do you perceive the child as, and maybe who do you think they're talking about in the last 2 lines, or the lines like where they describe either Orhan, the child, or the author. And then when a character perceives something, well, first Orhan, how they perceive Orhan. In those last 2 lines, like it's an event where they describe Orhan as a trickster, or like somebody who will drag out a story, be more dramatic, for the sake of a good story. Right there, that's how they perceive him, as well as the murderer. When the murderer perceives his event as like something of God, like how he killed this person, he believes that it's the right thing to do. How he sees it is like what he's doing is right, and he's trying to convince himself, but also others, what he did was actually right. So that right there is perception. It's just like how he perceives his own doings, maybe, in the eyes of God as well as just society. And then also, the murderer, after he's killed someone, he now looks at others differently. Like, he sees, like, oh, this person could also be a murderer. Or he looks at people with, like, and he's like, now that he's killed someone, his eyes are now opened, and now he perceives people differently. So, and that's chapter 4, which I will be called the murderer, and it's his perspective, and that's why. So then, just the novel, an instance where, like, the novel itself really makes you, like, look at maybe, like, the bunny and the duck, or the rabbit and the duck, would be chapter 3, I Am a Dog. But the entire novel itself is, like, perception and how you see things, really, like, the entirety of it. But more specifically, chapter 3, I Am a Dog, like, the author, this is probably one of the trickier chapters, because you don't know if it's a real dog that they're talking about or a dog in a painting, because it makes it seem as, like, there's, because of, like, so in the instance of context, it'll say, like, oh, the dog bit someone. However, like, in its language and stuff, it's talking as if it's, like, a real dog, it's perspective. But then later on, there's many instances of where somebody is mentioning a painting of a dog, like, in different chapters. So then, so you're like, well, is this a dog or a painting of one? So it's very confusing. So, like, that chapter, just in general, was very confusing, because it did actually blur the lines between, like, in that instance, the signifier and the signified, which is, like, a real dog, and then the image or word dog, like the painting of a dog. So, yeah, that chapter was just very confusing, actually. But that would probably be, like, the most perceptive chapter, where you have to see, is this actually a dog or not? And then as you read on, I guess it says more, I think it's a painting of a dog, because that's what it talks about the most, like, a painting of a dog. But in that instance, like, it was talked as if it was, like, an actual dog, like, its language and stuff. So it's very hard to perceive. But that's, like, the book in general. It is very hard to perceive. But yeah, that's